Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Wrath of the Righteous with me, Bregaton. Let's continue through this mysterious lair and see if we can't find its master. Secret Overlords, the essence of the world order. Until recently, we knew this world as it was described in books and stories. A sewer torn apart by hyenas that separate us with nations and borders, oppress us with extortion and lies, and assert their authority and power. However, someone else's hand rules these slaves who act like masters. It's a threat far more intimidating than a handful of arrogant fools. Our lands are secretly ruled by the most ancient creatures of Golarion, the inhabitants of the Everdark Depths, who know both past and future. People are led along paths they cannot see, and do not have the power to leave, to an end known only to the hidden masters. I think there's an extra word there. Some insist that the signs are purely coincidental, but they point to a vast conspiracy. Only a fool can fail to see how the myriad coincidences weave into a great cobweb, or they have submitted their very will and sworn their allegiance to our unseen masters in the depths. Ah yes, the lizard people. Night of the Witch by Mackie Vanos. Or Vanos. Sarkorian refugees, driven from their home, try to get as far away from demon-corrupted lands as they could. Many of them, exhausted from their long travels, are just unable to find acceptance among local residents, stayed outside already existing settlements. These communities remain to this day, and they all share a certain curious tradition. The celebration was seemingly established at the same time in all Sarkorian enclaves, even in the most distant ones. The event bears several names: Night of the Witch, Orlesh's Verdict, Bonfire Night, among others. The preparations begin several days in advance. The adults craft an enormous effigy of the most hated servant of the Abyss, the witch Iaria Vorlesh, who opened the tear between two planes and thus earned the titles Architect of the Worldwound and Betrayer of Humanity. The children are usually relieved from their chores, gather kindling in the nearby forest. Instead, they might ask their neighbors for some wood, traditionally voicing their request in the form of concern. They need something to warm the witch's feet. On the appointed day, the crowd places the effigy on a pole in the center of the settlement or neighborhood, where everyone can throw mud at it until sunset. At nightfall, cheers erupt as Iaria Vorlesh's effigy burns to ash. It's worth noting that effigy incineration is so akin to an atrocious method of execution that guards and other enforcers often observe these festivities with great suspicion. However, any claims of the Sarkorians burning those suspected of demon worship in the place of an effigy are idle flights of fancy lacking substance.
Follow if you dare.
Sarkoris Lost. Absalom, published by the Foray Logos Archaeological Society. The middle of the plateau that forms central Sarkoris was the location of the region's capital, the city of Eyes, the country's metallurgical heart. The rich mineral deposits of these lands have been known to the Kelots since ancient times, and over the long centuries, plenty of mines and workshops had sprung up here, and their output flowed into Eyes. From here, traders led their heavily loaded caravans to other parts of Sarkoris and beyond. Many a wonder crafted by the Kelots over the years of their capital's prosperity disappeared without a trace with the demonic invasion and Eyes' destruction. Local artisans were most skillful in their trade, which can be seen through the few surviving works of weaponsmithing, jewelry making, and metal casting arts. And while silver headdresses with ornate temple rings and lightweight sabers with hilts bearing their owner's initials can still be found in museums and private collections, other handcrafted examples of Eyes' legacy are lost forever. Specifically, we of course only know of architectural landmarks of both secular and sacred variety through scarce descriptions. Meanwhile, local stonecutters are recognized throughout all Sarkoris, as many palaces, temples, and monuments decorating other cities were made by the hands of artisans from Eyes. On the basics of Sin Magic. The roots of Sin Magic are in the 7 virtues of rule laid down by Archmage Zin, sovereign of the Thessalonian Empire. According to his teachings, the virtues, charity, generosity, humility, kindness, love, temperance, and zeal, were a gift from one of the supreme goddesses of the empire, Lasala. Only just and wise rulers would be deemed worthy of receiving these high rewards. A metamorphosis, however, turned the 7 virtues into 7 sins. And Thassalon, the 7 strongest mages named Rune Lords, have been made governors of each part of the vast empire that had grown beyond one human's control. Emperor Zin's reign ended when he died at the hands of his own stewards. With the Emperor deposed and a puppet installed as his replacement, these Rune Lords became true masters of their territories. Plotting against each other and warping Zin's tenets, the mages gradually perverted the 7 virtues, while becoming manifestations of these corrupt aspects. Greed, lust, pride, gluttony, envy, wrath, and sloth set into the lands of Thassalon, plunging the empire into the depths of depravity and profligacy, causing it to crumble from the inside. Even though Earthfall brought about the end of the nation, it did not put an end to the Rune Lords' misdeeds. For each of them had foreseen the calamity, and did all in their power to prevent their death in the disaster that destroyed Thassalon. The history of the Worldwound. We learned something new. An Erosian published by the Royal Court of Mendev. Demons and their worshippers have long been active in the vicinity of Sarkoris. Even back in the year 4433, the Abyssal Hordes had Eridan himself waged a grand battle in the region now known as the Worldwound. The forces of good had triumphed then, as the god of humanity defeated Discari's minions and drove the surviving demons back, straight into the waters of the Lake of Mists and Veils. Well, why did the denizens of the Abyss have such keen interest in the northern reaches of Avestan? To the dismay of all mortal kind, Aurelian Vorlesh answered this question, and has consequently gone down in history as the architect of the Worldwound and the betrayer of humanity. Born of humans, this fiend felt such hatred toward her own kind, but was filled with such boundless selfishness, not selflessness, for the sake of ascension and power, she pledged herself to the Abyssal Lords. An adept of the arcane jailed by the Sarkorians and the prison fortress of Threshold, she accomplished something that the Descarites who perished in the lake had failed at previously. She ripped apart the planar fabric that had been thin in Sarkoris since days of yore. Her thought and will thoroughly corrupted to mirror the foulest depths of the Abyss. Aurelian Vorlesh forged a deplorable alliance with Iscari, and began hatching the heinous plan that she put into motion in the year 4606. It was then that Aurelian and her accomplices performed the ritual that cut open creation itself, like a knife, and left a festering tear in the material plane that would never heal. The Worldwound connecting Golarion with the Abyss. By a tragic coincidence, or perhaps by some evil intent, the Worldwound was created mere weeks after Eridan's death. Millions of Eridan's followers and priests across the world were filled with the horror and despair normally reserved to orphan children, partially explaining why humanity did not realize, there and then, the sheer threat of the newly opened Sarkorian portal. Taking advantage of turmoil in the mortal world, Discari drove his forces to attack the defenseless Sarkoris, and Aurelian Vorlesh, who had been rewarded for her betrayal, started on her path toward demonic existence. And we learned what from that? This book grants a +1 insight bonus on a lore religion and a lore nature skill check. I feel like it should be knowledge world instead of nature. Crusade Chronicles. In the year 4606, the expanses of Sarkoris were tainted by the swollen abscess of the colossal proportions that was the Worldwound, a tear between Golarion and the Abyss that let thousands upon thousands of demons onto the material plane. In the long years that followed, the Caliphs of Sarkoris either fled or fell, outmatched while fighting for their home. In the year 4622, the Church of Iomedae announced the beginning of the First Crusade, a blessed war against the demons that had destroyed Sarkoris and now threatened neighboring lands. Valiant warriors, led by Queen Galfrey herself, pushed the Abyssal servants away from their borders, and returned home victorious. The year 4630 marked the end of the First Crusade. Numerous fortresses and garrisons were established in those years in former Sarkorian lands, the outposts duty-bound to watch over Mendev's borders. After 8 years, in 4638, the Worldwound suddenly expanded to 4 times its previous size, unleashing new monstrous hordes. The worst of the blows suffered by the Crusaders was the loss of Dresden, a fortress city that used to serve as a base for many a military operation. The Second Crusade was called, which claimed countless lives, yet never resulted in victory. Only with the creation of the Wardstones was the demon invasion stopped, as the Lucent Iomedae's magic stood as an impenetrable wall, blocking the invaders' path. In the year 4645, After 7 years of arduous and mirthless war, the Second Crusade came to an end. The Third Crusade was declared in 4665, but this time, the Crusaders were fighting a war within their own ranks as well. Over the years, many abyss-serving cultists and spies had found their way past Mendevian defenses. The Third Crusade reached the apex of an inquisition that mercilessly purged heresy and demon worship by fire and sword. The Crusade was called off in 4668, after the atrocities of interrogators had provoked sufficient upheaval and discontent among the populace. The Fourth Crusade was instigated by demons in the year 4692, when they broke through the protective barrier of the Wardstones. With righteous fury, the champions of Mendev fought the demons for 15 years, aiming to put an end to the old threat. But by the conclusion of the Fourth Crusade, which ended in 4707 due to a shortage of supplies and manpower, decisive victory was just as remote a possibility as it had been for all of the previous crusades. Know Thy Enemy, a Crusader's Brief. Publishing funded by the Brotherhood of Crusader Adherents. Remember, Crusader, your foes are many, and each one is devious in its own way. In the lands of the Worldwound, 2 demonic masters rule. Learn to distinguish their influence and their followers. Discari is a demon lord who commands locusts and other crawling pests. It is an all-devouring wave that sweeps away all that is bright, majestic, and pure, leaving behind nothing but decay and ashes. For 100 years, this evil fiend and his lackeys have been sowing death and suffering all across Galarian, sending one horde after another through the Worldwound and onto our plane. Discari's visage is hideous, for his essence is a horrid crossbreed of humanoid and insect, and behind his back are fluttering wings woven from swarms of insects. Born of 2 demons, Discari despises both his brethren that were once mortal and is now human followers. Knowing of this disdain, the cleverest of his cultists seeks ways to transform themselves into full-blooded demons, and to this end, they attempt some of the vilest experiments on their own flesh. Discari has been behind the horrors of the Worldwound ever since its creation. However, the other demon lord Baphomet joined him only at the onset of the Third Crusade. The goat-headed demon lord is cunning and slippery, and where his unholy kin makes its way through brute force, Baphomet prefers deceit, corruption, and backstabbing. Many noble houses trying to preserve their veneer of exalted dynasties keep to the worship of Baphomet as a family tradition. In truth, the cultists who call themselves Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth are searching day and night for weaknesses in the Crusader ranks. A doubtful mind to corrupt, a wavering heart to break, an ember and a cowardice to fan. Beware of the cultists of Baphomet. They might be standing next to you, looking over your shoulder and laughing at what you are reading. Crusade Chronicles, this book grants plus 10 hit points, that's pretty solid. And then Know Thy Enemy, a Crusader's Brief. This book grants a +1 insight bonus on perception and stealth skill checks. That's also really good.
Can't hide this from my eyes.
Well, there's Zacharias. I'm not going to get too close to him yet. Eternal Sunshine, a Pilgrim's Journal. I failed to resist temptation, and quickly doused my weary feet in the holy waters of the oasis. I washed my feet off first, for it would never do to desecrate a divine font with the dust of the road. The sunset danced upon the surface of the water. I closed my eyes as my flesh went numb, in yearning anticipation of a miracle. On the road, pain had gnawed at my heart, but I melted into the holy water, and my sores seemed to fade away. I looked into my heart and questioned the purity of my thought. Was I worthy enough to escape my torment? Would Serenray give me a sign? I was prepared to greet the sound of flapping dove wings. The fever overwhelmed me. I sensed the divine rays, but the sun had set. The light was coming through my eyelids. I witnessed the figures of Serenray and her angels. I dared open my eyes, but they were heavy, as if burdened with all the weight of the sun's heat. Sleep dawned upon me. I've read that one already. By Nilin, A Sister of Mercy, Memoirs of the Second Crusade. By Nilin Malchester. Magnamar, Silverbank Spiritual Literature Publishing House. We gather again for the common evening prayer in the field chapel, altogether setting aside our disagreements, or rather, politely pretending to have forgotten them. Arrows of sharp looks fly around the tent. The servants of Serenray look askance at the servants of Asmodeus. The priests of Gorham, who come to the prayer in armor covered with blood, make no attempt to conceal their disdain for those such as me, who are not rushing to the front lines of the battle. But what can I do if my weak, soft hands have been taught gentleness, not violence? I catch a glance of a priestess of Shaylin, squeamish, compassionate surely, and full of prim smugness. She never stooped to what I do for our fighters, but I know of no higher service. Some fellow believers told me that during times of war, we must forget the tender side of the savored sting, and turn entirely to her formidable, punishing image, for there is no place for love on the battlefield. But I do not agree. Here everyone is ready to punish, but who if not us will bring love? We kneel and I pray the unquenchable fire. My lady, take my eyes, for they can no longer witness the horrors of the war, or see beautiful bodies broken and torn asunder. No longer can they cry out for allies, for our allies, friends and lovers. And the goddess replies, My child, your eyes are a priceless treasure. As a lighthouse safely guides ships back to land during the storm, the light in your eyes brings heroes back from the bloody storm of battle. And I pray, my lady, so shut my lips, for I can no longer kiss the skin, which I know by dawn will be sliced, bitten, and peeled. And the goddess replies, My child, your lips are stronger than a sword and firmer than armor plate. The whisper of your prayer gives strength to the fighters and brings burning fire to the demons. The whisper of your prayer heals broken skin, so you may kiss it again. And I pray, my lady, burn out my heart. Let it find peace in the indifferent ash, for it can no longer withstand this pain. And the goddess replies, My beloved child, this pain is caused by the fire that burns in your heart, a fire so bright that everyone around it is comforted by its healing warmth. Do not dare turn to ash, but carry this heat to the very threshold of my chambers, where in the end you will find peace. Sneak over there. I think it's going to trigger a conversation. I don't remember if it's an automatic conversation or if I actually have to click on them to start it.
I have a hunch.
I do what I must.
I will help where I can.
Oh.
I will lend you my aid. The goddess protects us.
This was simple enough.
Cool.
My will is
real
resolute.
quick.
Something over there. Let me help.
Rely on me. Call me again if you need to. Lead on.
Search for the beauty with your heart, not your eyes.
Together we stand. This was simple enough. A bright future awaits us.
So I have Death Ward up, so I'm gonna get Seal in here first.
No time for debates.
The Inheritor, guide my blade.
I want them all focusing on her because we know she has Death Ward up.
Mongrel.
They better start running.
Did you see that?
Sorry, Sunshine. We'll fix you up and bring you back in no time. Despite the general devastation, the books look surprisingly intact. Every spine is neatly dusted. I've seen that one before. The Curse of Ancient Iaria by Hastef or Ume. Tell us, O teacher, why would Brevoy call us barbarians in the books you give us? The gods became angry with our homeland, my son. This land has devoured so many great empires, as if it was unwilling to bear life. There are centuries-old ruins around our settlement. They were ravaged by a star that fell from the sky. The kingdom of the Cyclopes, or Cyclopes, was the first victim of its curse. New settlers claimed that this land 10 centuries later to establish a beautiful country named Iaria, which stretched from the Lake of Mist and Veils to the Castrovan Sea. But the curse still lay upon these lands, and trouble came once again. Our ancestors suffered numerous maladies. Tear plague, the char death, the choking death, one after another, leaving only pain behind. People say that Odin the Necromancer was to blame. But who knows? The great civilization was turned to dust. This is why I'm teaching you. Your voice shouldn't make fun of you or call you barbarians.
I'm gone.
Battle in the Valley of Fire by Lure Saudori. Argon was knocked flat. Did I read this one before? I think we may have. Oh, we'll read it again. It's not very long. Argon was knocked flat. He laid gasping, arms spread, a lump of rage rising in his throat. He remembered his dream. Black soil, red ravens in the empty sky, their coarse croaks ringing in his ears like a taunt. Coral would never take Rosslyn. Never. Adori sprang to his feet as if the blood-soaked soil was driving him forward. With a cry of rage, the Swordlord rushed into the battle. The sky turned scarlet with blood as he fiercely chopped off his enemies' heads. The scarlet horizon drew closer, and its roar nearly drowned out the sound of battle. Argon looked to the sky, and a fiery blast descended upon him. These were no ravens that circled above him. The fearsome breath of the red dragons of Coral melted the soldier's armor and turned living flesh to ash and dust. Yeah, we definitely read that one in this playthrough. Oh, this is new. A Guide for Travelers, Hunters, and Explorers of the River Kingdoms, Volume 5, Monsters and Beasts. Will-O-Wisp. An amusing glowing ball, which looks harmless and doesn't arouse any natural suspicion, pretends to be a guiding light in the marshes, but leads travelers to certain death. The agonizing fear of their victims and this monster's nourishing dinner. If you manage to resist their tricks, make sure you have some lightning protection. The monster shocks any visitors it fails to lure into terror. Werewolf. Werewolves prefer to hunt in groups and attack lone travelers. It's entirely possible that a Vrisian camp or troop could turn into a pack of bloodthirsty lycanthropes under cover of darkness. Ordinary weapons stand little chance against them, but a silver blade greatly increases your chances of survival. Primals. Powerful creatures of the primal realm occasionally visit this world for amusement. It's best to stay out of a primal's way. Don't fight it. It's extremely dangerous. But if a life is at stake, resort to cold steel. A duality of conjuration and summoning. The cover and each page are divided into black and white halves. The former is dedicated to demons, their power, and their destructive nature. The latter is about angels and their knowledge and protective sides. The further you read, the more you realize that with each page the script becomes less and less legible. By the end, you're not sure what you see, but you can say for certain this research drove the conjurer to madness. This book allows you to summon a demon or angel once per day. If the owner is evil alignment, it will summon 1d2 plus 1 monadic devas. If the owner is good alignment, it will summon 1d2 plus 1 Nabasu demons. If the wearer is neutral, there's an equal chance to summon angels or demons. Duration of summoning is equal to the owner's level. There's a 10% chance that the creatures will break free from the control and start attacking the owner. This book has 10 pages, and each time the owner uses it to summon a creature, they receive one of the following scrolls randomly. So a scroll of angelic resistance, a +2 racial bonus on saves against poison for 1 hour. A scroll of demonic resistance, you gain a +5 electricity resistance for 1 hour. A scroll of abyssal regeneration, you gain a +5 fast healing for 1 hour. A scroll of angelic knowledge, you get a +2 bonus to all knowledge and lore skill checks for 1 hour. A scroll of demonic intimidation, you get a +2 bonus to intimidation skill checks for 1 hour. A scroll of wings of freedom, you get a +2 bonus on saving throws against ground effects for 1 hour. A Scroll of Divination. All spells from Divination School you cast as if you were 1 level higher for 1 hour. A Scroll of Stomp. Getting a +2 bonus on CMB checks for 1 hour. A Scroll of Resourceful Smite. You gain an additional Smite Evil per day permanently. Effect can be applied once per creature. And Scroll of Resourceful Rage. You gain an additional Rage per day permanently. Effect can be applied once per creature. So the Scroll of Resourceful Smite would be really good because we have 2 Paladins. If we can get that twice, we'd be doing pretty good. We'll just give this to Social.
Can't hide this from my eyes.
I will help where I can.
The world has suffered enough.
Rely on me. It is no trouble. This was simple enough.
Are we ready to move out?
Yet another obstacle.
So make sure that she remains on the front line. They're moving for the kill.
Mind over muscle.
Begone, fiend! Fall!
I am your end.
Assaulted meat, grain, wine, all the supplies that used to be stored in the barrels, only dust remains.
Follow if you dare. You aren't from a noble family, right? You were taught to fight and read prayers, but I can pick a street rat out of a crowd of aristocrats.
Right, and they keep looking at me like I'm about to blow my nose on the curtains, especially the ones whose nightly services don't go any further than marching in parades.
Alright, I'm gonna call it here, and next time we will talk to Zacharias, the Martyr. After we buff up, of course, and maybe put down a grease spell. For no particular reason. But for now, thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.